Next, we want to improve and release software at a good pace. As a software engineer, it is much nicer to work at a pace where we deliver new features and bug fixes in a tighter loop. You may have worked with processes where your code changes have manually moved from development, testing, and production environments. These types of processes can be slow and prone to error. CI and CD focuses on the automation of steps we need to release our software. Using AWS Code Pipeline, you can model and automate your software release processes. We are building code, we are testing code, and making all of this ready for deployment. In our previous modules, we have looked at AWS Code Commit for source control, AWS Code Build as a place to run automated tests, and Elastic Beanstalk for deployment. Now with AWS Code Pipeline, on every code commit, we can initiate the CI/CD workflow, taking the code update through the automated tests inside of Code Build and preparing an artifact for the next stage in our pipeline. For example, deployment with Elastic Beanstalk. Now this is an automated process. What would have previously happened manually can now happen with every commit. How do we model our release process? In Code Pipeline, a workflow or a pipeline is composed of multiple stages. A stage is a logical grouping of actions, such as build, test, and deploy actions. If all the actions in a stage complete, the stage is considered a success, and Code Pipeline will progress to the next stage. If an action fails, the pipeline will stop. This is when a software team starts asking questions like, who broke the build? As a software engineer, I want to know when I have introduced a bug. The source code is not in a happy state, and this has an impact on my team's productivity. Addressing a bug earlier in the cycle, when it's fresh in my head, gets these issues fixed quicker. We are now getting constant feedback on the health of our code. Let's look at the stages and actions of a sample continuous integration pipeline. A CI pipeline takes our code changes and uses this to build, test, and then make everything ready for deployment. Let's start with our stages: source, build, test, and deploy. We can start with the source action. This can retrieve our code from Code Commit, or other sources like S3 and GitHub are also supported. Next, a build action. This can be AWS Code Build, doing something like building my Java code, or a third-party integration like Jenkins or CloudBees. Then a test action. Again, this could be Code Build, running some unit tests against my code, or a third-party integration like BlazeMeter is also supported. The code is happy, we have passed our build and test stages. Sounds like we are ready to deploy. But are we really ready to deploy? Do you want a manual approval? For example, some manual quality assurance testing. For this, we can add an approval action. We configure this with an SNS topic to notify our approvers to view the action in the console. Now we can think of a deploy action. For our deploy action, we have chosen Elastic Beanstalk. We could use other AWS services like AWS CloudFormation, AWS Code Deploy, or third parties. We don't need it for this pipeline, but it's also possible to create a custom action. We might need to write a custom action to integrate with an internally developed build process or test suite. And now it's your turn. We can move on to our code pipeline exercise.